Hello, everybody. Welcome if you are watching this video resource from Borderlands Creative People and Places. My name is Sherston Luckins and I am project manager of The First Verse, which is a community poetry engagement programme paving the way for the first ever South Tees Poet Laureate. It is the plan of Borderlands to have an adult laureate, and we hope very much to have a parallel young laureate, which will open to applications in 2026. So, as part of preparing our local poets for that process and to give them a bit of courage and guidance and inspiration, I am here with a perfect posse of Peterborough Poet Laureates, past and present. Boom! I said it. Hey! So I'm going to whistle stop through some little bios for you so you know who's going to be in the conversation to come. We have Charlie Jennifer, who was City Laureate from 2015 to 2017. She is a poet and a community producer for Peterborough Presents, who they are the city's creative peoples and places programme, so the equivalent of Borderlands, but in Peterborough. And she describes herself as a lava lamp head and a flesh gallery. So make of that what you will. We also have Kat Beaton, who was laureate from March 22 to December 23. So they have multiple jobs. Head of student support at a uni, manager at a street arts company, freelance writer, performer, producer, many. We don't have the full list. This is a person with many things going on. General Dumpster Phoenix. So you can find out more about Kat at catbeaton.com. Very happy to have them here. And then we also have Alex Tyler, who says he works for Peterborough Highway Services, which is about as fun as it sounds. At last, somebody with a normal job. Hooray! Nerd, poet and functional lunatic, which may well be a criteria on the role description for laureate. And finally, we're joined by Lauren Kendrick, who is laureate from December 23 to February 25. Is that so current at the time of recording, which is fantastic. Freelance eco-artist, curator and grower of what we do not know. Lives, joy, poems, all things. So welcome all of the Peterborough Poet Laureates. Thank you very much indeed for coming and agreeing to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a laureate, the challenges, the pitfalls, the great stuff, how you've approached it, what people could expect perhaps to get out of a laureateship if they're successful. I have asked these lovely people to prepare for us a poem that they wrote or have written during their time as laureate, and then speak a little bit about how and why that poem came about, to give you a flavour of their thinking and their activities and their focus during their time as laureate. Would it be okay for me to call on you in the same order as the bios people? So we would start with Charlie, is that okay? Lovely. Okay, Charlie, if you would like to unmute and I will put a spotlight on you maybe.
Ooh,
Please do. I know, the technology. Please do either launch into the poem and then tell us the story, or vice versa, whatever works for you.
Yeah, I think I'll start with the story. So I guess I was the laureate furthest back in history of us chatting to you tonight. The the poem that I thought I would share is one that I kind of wasn't commissioned to write. It was something I wrote during the time as laureate, but it was something inspired by one of the things I did do as Poet Laureate, which is a really unique experience. I judged the Miss Peterborough competition that year. My friend from school's mum organise the competition. And to her credit, it wasn't that stereotypical perception of what a pageantry competition was. It was more inclusive than that, but it did still have some of the kind of typical tropes. There was like a young Miss Peterborough as well, and on the judges table, there was so I was on the end, and to right to my left was the mum of one of the kids in the young Peterborough competition, and she kept leaning over to look at my score and was really like, yeah, really taking it super seriously. Um, and it was a strange experience. But yeah, one that was, I think, really fun in a strange way as Peterborough Poet Laureate. So then I guess not directly after that, but I was already thinking I write a lot about my experiences of being a woman. Um, and this poem is thinking about if I were to ever have a daughter, what I would teach her, what I would say to her. And the other thing, I guess, that inspired more how I wrote it and the fact that it's more of I knew it was going to be a performance piece, was I, another privilege of being Peterborough Poet Laureate, was that the confidence it gives you to go and explore other things that are going on, not even just in your own city, but outside. So I went to like kind of lots of gigs in London and Cambridge and saw how the kind of the up and coming and the established poets were writing. So this took the form of, I guess, a letter poem. So imagining I'm speaking to my future daughter. Um, cool, I'll get into it then. So, to my future daughter. To my future daughter, you are the birth of a volcano and the collapse of one. So I encourage you to meddle, learn how well lava settles over that which it unsettles. And the only difference, my daughter, between a sword and a petal is that one cannot exist without man and his history and his need to shape things, all things as one man, while a woman consumes in shades, often in the shade. But that, my daughter, is a loop of unmade we are now beginning to claim in our own hue. See, my daughter, gender never was and never will be binary. Gender is an arcade with free pizza, and you, my daughter, you can play and eat them all if you want. See, you and you alone own all you've ever known when it comes to who you are. The same goes for who you love, but the two are not always the same and should not be labelled by any name, font, or uniform. I've seen too many breathe in that desperation to conform as if it were chloroform. My daughter, there are things we sometimes need to help discover ourselves. There is art, and there is the dark side of the internet. Know them both as spectacles of human energy, that they're not signatures of the heart, but of the elbows, the groin, the shed skin. Don't be afraid when the wind is thin or the rhythms you will find yourself in. My daughter, I guess some words are hairpins designed to keep the ones that don't follow the pattern in place. And you, my daughter, you can say that C word if you want. You can say any word you want. See, you own those strands of meaning once held tight in those stiff metal grooves. See how uncomfortably a man can move, a woman can move, the stars can move. When you present them with tubes of truth you have uprooted from within you, like a once starved bird who rises with a fresh worm beak firm as a fist. If the sky offers you a night, the black of Guinness, take it. The absence of light can only mean the absence of surface. If a lie finds its way into the mouth of power, break it before the lie becomes a commodity the lost ones purchase. If I can promise you one thing for certain, my future daughter, I promise I will raise you a queen. For a queen eats like war, knows who she is eating for a queen speaks like war. She knows who she is speaking for. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, that was inspired by judging Miss Peterborough competition.
Put my sound back on. Wow, Charlie, thank you so much for that. What a great big swelling crescendo! Amazing. How lovely to use that format of speaking into the future through an imagined daughter. It's really beautiful thing to do. And what a great insight into how unexpected or weird the laureateship position might be, sort of like asking you to engage in and be a public figure in that way, connecting you to cultural events and communities that you might not really have had any dealings with at all. So it's quite feels like it could really expand your knowledge of who does what around the
Yeah,
place.
absolutely. I'm sure we've all got examples of where we did something completely unexpected, or something that's not expected to be linked to poetry. And that's the
Yeah,
joy of it.
yeah, absolutely. So when they asked you to be judge on that, um, were you expected to write some kind of valedictory poem for the occasion, or were you simply a public figure?
Yeah, simply a public figure there to judge. Yeah, which
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know whether actually if they'd have done it again, whether they'd have asked me to perform or do anything like that. But instead they had like a former member of the Drifters singing like 80s soul in between. Like it was a vibe in the Holiday Inn, no less.
That is just all kinds of epic. Thank you so much. What a great story. Right, okay. We shall obviously talk more as we go along, but I'm going to turn the spotlight now on the lovely cats and, yeah, ask them what their poem and story is. And again, like whichever way round you want to do it, Cat.
So I'm going to tell you the story first, and it is a strange way of getting there. So bear with me. I promise it will make sense. Um, so I was in an abusive relationship for the best part of a decade, and before that, performing arts, loud on stage. Stage was mine. Spotlight was mine. Very happy and at home there. That was my safe space, and then skip forward a decade and I was a shell of myself and I didn't know myself anymore and I couldn't perform. I'd been gaslit and the abuse that you suffer and the coercive control, and it had changed everything to the point where I couldn't stand on a stage without a visceral and physical reaction happening. So I thought, that's it, that's done. That's like nerves were nothing compared to what happened. That's my life as a performer over, and I will never be there again. So that was tough. And then somebody had read some of the poetry I'd been tinkering with and went, "Hey, Laureate." So I tried, and when I got up on stage, I was shaking from start to finish and I couldn't, like, I think I mumbled half of it. It was probably terrible. And yeah, so I couldn't actually perform it. So that was that. But kudos to the person who won that night, very deserving. And then skip forward another decade. And I'd taken a leap. I'd gone to university and I'd started, by this point, I was healing. I was sort of starting to remember not really who I was even, but who I wanted to be. And by the end of that university life, it was Charlie. And that poem that she read means a lot to me because she performed that on this night. And I was in a room with Charlie and the then current poet laureate of Peterborough. reading my work. And I was like, why have I been put with these two? And so I'm in this room reading my work. And by the end of that night, they were telling me that I was a poet, that I was a writer, that I could perform again. So I was like, wow, that's something. And Charlie encouraged me to apply to Poet Laureate. So I said no, haha, very funny. And at 3 a.m., which is where I do all my best work, I actually smashed out a poem and an application and submitted it before my brain had the chance to tell me I probably didn't have the confidence to do that. And then skipped to the final, and I had to perform. And it's the first time I'd really performed in front of an audience. And the second I got behind the mic, something clicked. And I was like, I remember what this is for, and this is my space. And, you know, spoilers, I got Poet Laureate. So, you know, everything changed. But what that night taught me, and with a very, very quick and impactful lesson, was to stop living in fear and to step into my own skin and to be confident in taking chances, in doing things that were out of my comfort zone, and that I could stand in that space again. So the poem that I've chosen is one called Voices, otherwise known as Not in My Name. And this was one I was asked to do for Black History Month. And immediately, because of my complexion, I thought, this is not my space. I should not do this poem. You should find somebody who is more suited to this. And then I sat in it and I thought, no, it is not the responsibility of the global majority to keep fighting this cause alone. And I need to speak up from my perspective. So I added my voice to the mix. I stepped out of my comfort zone and I did this poem. So this is Voices. The sign said, no blacks, no Irish, and no dogs. And see, I'm probably two of those things, but I carry shame and privilege in the pigment of my skin. And suffering might be deep in my DNA, but I don't get called out day by day for the color I was born in. The past is never really erased, just papered over, waiting for someone to renovate. I want to hear different voices, the sound of someone else's song, or this world will stagnate. The whispers of the masters ringing in my brain. And it's not about blame. It's about looking reality in the face, because it was never in my name. But I stand on blood and bone all the same. And we have come so far, but there is so much still to change. And I need to hear different voices, and not those speaking on my behalf, ignoring my cause to promote their way, taking my name and twisting it into a brick to build castles for their gain, or to smash in stained glass windows because someone used a different kind of paint. So, if you want to use it for something, how about you listen in my name? That's that one.
Thank you so much. That's so fantastic. The story and the poem, both, Kat. That's just loads and loads of stuff in there. I think that people wondering what it might be like to go for it and not get it, what it might be like to circle back to it, because obviously we hope that this laureateship will be the first of many, and you guys are all in the position of being in a city where the laureateship is so well established that it's been going on long enough for a decade to pass, and for that opportunity to still be there for you, which I find so incredibly heartening as a possibility, that something like this could exist for long enough for an individual's journey to come all the way round to the right place and the right time and the right frame of mind, I just think is really astonishing. So there's so much in there about having courage, having integrity, having persistence, having this opportunity is like a really massive validation of self, but also a really massive opportunity for community. And the legacy of that kind of attitude of a community of poets who will give one another's boosts and leg ups for it, and who then in turn sort of are ambassadors for poetry and the good that it can do as a communal space as much as an individual's healing journey as well, or an individual's expression. Loads of stuff in there. Personally, I would hope that our laureate would feel passionately about the possibility of poetry and poetry community to do that, and then to have that opportunity to sit and think very deeply about your own ethics and about these large questions is also an opportunity that perhaps not every poet would take if it wasn't in their remit to do so. Like if they were just kind of doing nice poems about birds and clouds. I don't know. I talk about myself there. Lots of birds and clouds going on in my work. Thank you very much indeed. Lots for somebody to think about watching that. I'm going to continue on now to Alex and get the third of our poems. Alex, very, very, very nice to have you here. I'm going to spotlight you. Just like that. And yeah, same rules apply. Do we want poem
Excellent.
first or story first?
I'll just tell this. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Because my camera is awful quality, and I'm assuming my microphone is as well. But
it's not too bad.
that's not too bad. Okay, fine. I'll just continue with the vein we've been in, and I'll do a little bit of a story up front. Um, I've I was born in Peterborough, and I've always been in the local area pretty much. Um, I've been doing poetry in the area for a long time. Like I run an open mic here called Good Shout, which continues to be quite successful, I think. And when I applied to be laureate, there was no uh, massive inspiration really behind it. I just sort of thought I had, because I've been doing the open mic and bringing poets to the city for a little while, and I thought I just had some momentum with me. So I thought, you know what, I'll apply, because people said to me a lot, like, "Oh, you should apply to be poet laureate because you run the open mic and you perform a lot." And I'm like, "Nah, it's not for me. It's not for me. I'm not good enough for that." But then I thought, well, actually, I've got something with me this year. I reckon I can do something good with it. So I threw my hat into the ring and I said some good stuff and then did a good poem. And then I ended up winning. And I was like, oh, crap. I said some really good stuff up there. I've got to make good on that now. So I was Poet Laureate last year until February this year, and it's been handed over to the next one now. And it was a brilliant opportunity. I've always felt really close to my city. A lot of people sort of rag on Peterborough, but I'm one of the idiots that loves it here. I really like it. I think this place is rough around the edges and honest and just salt of the earth. And if you really engage with it and get it beneath your feet, then you'll experience a joy and belonging that you will not find anywhere else. I'm a firm believer of that. This is kind of why I chose this poem because I had the opportunity to work with some brilliant circles of people who are working really hard to uh, just maintain any sort of culture and art and everything in the city because our city has been it's got one of the lowest literacy rates in the country, well below the average. The government has labeled it a low ambition area, which pretty much says everything you need to know. And it can be a battle here sometimes to get stuff done and to keep it going. And I was able to work with some brilliant people that are fighting to keep their little bits of community going within the city. And that's why I wrote this one about Woodston Library, because Woodston Library is one of the is a small library, actually 2 minutes from where I live. It's my local library, really. And the council was threatening to close it down and, withdraw funding from it and all that stuff. But they recently announced that it's going to be saved in the budget next year, so that's good for 1 more year. So that's awesome. Like, I doubt this poem had anything to do with that decision, but I would like to believe that it did, even though it almost certainly did not. But this is called Woodston Library creatively, and it's something I was asked to write in support of the library. Woodston Library is just past Fletton Tower. Just keep going up Queen's Walk. The ley lines of community meet here, and there's magic within these walls. It was gifted by Harry Bark Hartley, who helped build New Fletton, slow and steady, brick by brick, person by person. Now, Harry was an investor, a man of litigation. He knew the value of things, not least of all, education. 1,000 books were taken out in the first 4 days, literacy for the community, with a born era from places far away. New books, people, technology, through it all the library's foundations held. A lot of change over the years, but still the same old shelves. But during tough times, 75 years later, local residents returns the favour. 1,000 books donated back in times of need, businesses stepping up so folks can sit comfortably. The local knitters who cover graffiti with wool, yeah, for this place, the community turned out in full. There's other worlds and knowledge in the people here, almost as much as the books, like text on a blank page, revealing truths and stories for those who care to look. Not just a cornerstone for the community, Woodston Library is a way in, comfort, gift. Now you can put a price on this building, but not on the value within. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, Alex, thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for giving us a kind of sense of how you might feel quite a lot of imposter syndrome before even getting towards putting in an application. It's really weird though, isn't it? Because you were active and had momentum within the poetry community and still didn't think that the laureateship was for you. And I've got a feeling there's going to be some people out there in Teesside who are going to think, oh, well, it's, yeah, I mean, I do loads of stuff, but it's not really for me. But it is for you. It is. It is for you. So really interesting stuff in there for me. The feeling that because you got it from a cohort that was so good in the final performances that I got a sense of you going, oh, up my game, which is potentially a really good thing about becoming a laureate, is that you do have to write much more poetry and really get into it. And then it's interesting that Peterborough, like Teesside, suffers from low literacy rates and poor reputation, but actually the job of a laureate could absolutely be to express deep and abiding love and gratitude and enthusiasm for the area that you're speaking about, and to then go and write for a library or like any civic cause, to be asked into that, to have a feeling that you are sort of voicing something, civic. It is a civic role, isn't it? So that was a really wonderful example of that. So thank you very much indeed. I am going to finally turn to Lauren Kendrick, and Lauren, thank you. You've been waiting patiently for what I'm sure is going to be a lush poetic experience. So please take us away.
Right. So my poem that I chose, I wrote quite a lot, and some of it didn't always have good news. Like, I wrote quite a lot about an arts organisation that actually their building closed. And we weren't able to save that building. It doesn't mean that stopped, but it was, that was a difficult time, but it was also like, I think a lot of great stuff has come from it. So I didn't want to read anything that was about that because I didn't want to stumble either, because it was, yeah, it was quite an emotional time. And I was thinking about this, and I chose a poem. I wasn't asked to write a poem for the night, but I did write a poem for that night. And I think I think if I'm remembering this rightly, I think it was either Cat or it's Charlie's night. I can't remember, but it was called Unleash Your Voice. And in the run up to that night, I wrote this poem, just because it kind of sat with me. So it's called Unleash Your Voice. What shackles contain you? Who holds the key? Because I want to hear you free. Let me know the power that sits within, little fire starter, nourishing gardener. Slowly with me, take a deep breath in. Feel your belly extend as you fill the cavities. Feel the space stretch. You are perfectly imperfect. Exhale. What is your strongest muscle? How we focus on the heart. What do you desire, little hollow pump? Will you only answer in flight or fight? Mechanical and continual. Let it not enslave you. Eye muscles, maintaining fixation as the head rolls. 10,000 coordinated movements for 1 hour of reading. Has society enforced lenses so you cannot see the marvel, the promise, the unique that's in front of me? Don't pore over badly angled photographs, dissecting the imperfections, shining light on perceived flaws, internal wallpaper pasted up by societal pressure. Where does that leave space for windows of pleasure? Flicking through old notebooks, ink on paper, to-do lists, phrases, pain in manifest. How I wish I could reach you, soothe the pain you immortalize in phrases, and hold you in the silence. Trying to find the words, gasps of grief as your mind shuts down, disconnecting from the mainframe, run the batteries to empty to just have some sleep. Has others' tongues lashed you, leaving burns and earworms, and the same old soundtrack on repeat? Asphyxiation from the fixation, causing dry mouth and fleshy choky. Parasitic experience may have left you on your knees. To heal is not trouble-free. Now, take a deep breath in. Feel your belly extend as you feel the cavity. Fill the space, stretch. You are perfectly imperfect. Exhale. Let my poultice of words replaster your internal walls. Sip sonic from the community cup. Release your jaw from clenching. Stretch it out, flex it. Let the tongue luxuriate. I want to hear what warms you, what brings about that glow. Complex 3D human, let's play in the rough and extend your margins. Let those eye rings be awe-inspiring, because you are the UX designer for the pathway of your life. Unmask the layers, shields of protection and separation. Take a risk, for the prize of authenticity is something not to be missed. But if you want a little help, come and see me. I know it's not easy, and my knees are scarred, and I'm hardened from friction, but I celebrate sensitivity. I'll hold space for you as you unleash, because words matter, and you deserve a voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. What a generous poem that is. It's so full of healing and love, and it's such a big offer in it. That's really, really gorgeous. And yeah, so I'm gonna ask a few questions that anybody could jump in on, but maybe I'll start with asking about what a laureate can offer to the people of their region? Like, what do you think is is the offer that you're giving to people as a laureate? It's quite a big one, isn't it? I didn't warn you about that one, but it just jumped into my head. Like, for example, do you all get asked to teach people how to write? Like, is that part of your role?
Not necessarily. I think we all had different years,
Yeah.
Yeah.
really.
I did a few schools workshops
Mm.
and young people's things. Um, and I was really early in knowing how to facilitate then. So looking back on them, I'm like, would have done it totally differently now that I'm a decade on and have really kind of established. Because I think that's one thing that people don't necessarily automatically understand when working with any creative, not just poets. Like, it's a different skill set to be able to facilitate. And if you don't have any kind of teaching background, you're going to have to figure it out by doing and practicing. So I think yeah, I mean, I still it really enjoyed and they were primary school as well, so they were even younger than where I was writing a lot. Most of my in fact, I don't think any of my poems at that point would have been appropriate for that audience. So um but yeah, I do really think it was really valuable in showing that that could be a possibility for me, because now that's a huge part of what I do as a poet is young people's workshops and school stuff, and giving voices. And that was also, in a way, kind of what I my ambition was as laureate, because until recently I thought I was the youngest ever to hold the crown. Turns out it was Mixie. Mixie was a year younger than me. And I bragged about that for ages. I know, but whatever. Mixie was the youngest. I was second youngest. But that was very much what I'd put in my application, was that I wanted to be a role model and give experiences and show people that you can use poetry as a way to express yourself and to be who you really are and to talk about what you care about. And some of that I think can come from more formal teaching, but then also just being a source of inspiration or providing open spaces for people to test stuff, um, or come and see stuff and be inspired to maybe pick up a pen when they're on their own later. And I think that you will never truly know the impact because of the ripple effect that you will inherently have of the people that you meet and work with or perform for. And that's something that whoever gets it up in Teesside should hold on to. Like, you will impact way more people than you even comprehend that you might.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Charlie. Um, so evidently it's had an impact on you and your practice if it's kind of threw you in at the deep end of working with primary school kids, but that has then since become part of your professional practice. Has anybody else got any reflections on how it might have changed your creative practice or your professional practice or your aspirations going forward?
Well, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, no,
Just to sort of
go for it.
piggyback off the back of that a little bit. I all about putting stuff on and making events happen and being a promoter. It might shock you to learn I'm not actually that creative. I'm quite a practical person. I work for highways, for Christ's sake. But it's like, but I really enjoy making events happen and putting gigs on and making shows happen and bringing poets to the city and seeing them on stage. That's sort of highlighted that's well, I kind of knew that's what I was about, but doing the laureate kind of really highlighted that for me because I really enjoyed writing the poems and working with the groups. But when I got a chance to be like, right, let's find me two pallets, a microphone, and a chicken, and we'll have ourselves a show. That sort of thing was like more inspiring in what I engaged with. And I thought I just loved creating new opportunities for poets. It's like, yeah, I want to sit at the back and drink cider and watch. You get on stage, you do
Yeah,
your thing. Like that was the real inspiration for me, really. And
that, yeah.
so yeah, that's a little bit different from that. But I found like a real love for putting on events and making them happen. And doing the secret handshakes and arguing with venue owners and stuff like that. I love that aspect of it. I really love it. So
That's very, very cool. Yeah, it's so cool, isn't it? Because, you know, same city, same role, completely different way
mm,
in. And I think there is going to be, as part of the application process, some requirement to think about, like what kind of a laureate you might want to do, because there will be the opportunity to do some
mm.
kind of project within the community, but that could be setting up an open mic night and encouraging
Yeah,
others. It could be working with a school. It could be, starting up a reading group and putting together an. It could be anything. If you lean into what is the motivating passion for your own practice, then the Laureate is the place that can maybe take that further and give it more opportunities to grow and deepen.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
not everybody has to. There is no wrong
No,
way
no, not at all.
to
Yeah.
do it.
I
Yeah.
think that's a really good point because, like, one thing that I would always emphasize about this role is having done it myself, having watched others do it beautifully, being mentored by Charlie when I was in the role and hearing all about her time, um, is that this role is whatever you make of it. And it is whatever you put into it, and how much you put into it is how much you'll get back from it and how much it will affect you and your process going forward.
That
So, you
is.
know, during my time, I my focuses were on collaboration and on providing access to those who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, because I was growing up and I barely had access to anything. So those things were really important to me, and that collaborative way of working, that beauty of difference that I was obsessed with and always trying to find, those connections that I was always trying to make, kind of ended up doing a bit of everything in that sense. But I took that core away with me and I still do that now. So I connect institutions and businesses and the creative community and other communities. And I love it and I still do it. And so I found what I really excelled at in that role. But you know, it's 100% whatever you make of it.
Oh, that's very inspirational to hear, Kat. Thank you. That's really good. Lauren, did you want to weigh in any way on this? I saw that you kind of popped into audible space. What has been your focus up until now, and how is it? Because you're kind of in process with it, and you maybe haven't had quite so long to reflect upon it yet. How's it
So
going?
I was so I was the laureate before Alex.
Oh,
So
you're
I had
before Alex. Sorry, I've got my timing
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. I Cat handed to me and then I handed to Alex. So we've got
Right.
like a
Yep, yep,
thing.
yep.
So um I think in the pre-bit it's about, yeah, choosing a year that actually is true to yourself. I really like agree with everyone on those point of views of like if you've got a passion about something, don't do something opposite to that because it won't shine through.
Yeah,
Like I'm really interested in food and nature, and so for me that was a massive thing. I wanted people to come together. I wanted people to eat and be part of that. I wanted us to kind of feed in every way through my year,
yeah,
and so I planned my year around that. And I think it's having those like, yeah, being true to who you are, I think is really good.
yeah.
I want to
Fantastic.
actually to jump in to big up some of Lauren's ideas just as a source of inspiration for people. So Lauren came up with an idea for a night and coasted it called "What Does Peterborough Taste Like?" So it was combining poetry with food, and the poets on the night had provided a food item of what we would say Peterborough tastes like. So then the food was cooked. We would each perform a set that was loosely food themed, and then the audience would eat the food that we had suggested. And it was just like, I can't ever imagine have only Lauren, I think, could come up with and curate that night so perfectly because it combines those beautiful passions. So, like, I think there's something there in like what other people are interested in. Like, I've had poems printed on clothing because I'm really into fashion and interested in words on clothes. So there's like, yeah, it's what can spark from being a laureate, even if you don't do it within your laureateship, is an opportunity to connect with non-arts things and mash them up together for some experimental fun.
That was
Phenomenal.
Keely's idea.
Was it
That was Keely's.
Keely's?
Yeah, so I wanted to do something around food. That was Keely's. I made all the food and made sure it all tasted exactly as you wanted it. Um, but yeah, that was Keely's idea. And so that was a kind of like, let's do something with this, let's talk it through, and yeah, thing. But
Very,
food
very
can be in
good.
everything. I'm a strong believer in that.
Amen.
Excellent. So I think this might segue quite well into one of my big questions. Big questions. Because it's clear that leaning into what you love and what you're passionate about is a really good way to apply and then to organise your time within the laureateship. However, it is still a civic role. And it is quite possible that you might be asked to do things or expected to write poems, etc., that perhaps are not what you would have chosen for yourself initially. So we got a couple of questions in from our poets, big questions, and one was, how do you negotiate the balance between creative freedom and your social conscience, but also the civic responsibilities or the expectations put on you by the city in your case? And I think we were gonna go to you, weren't we, about that tension between what you love and what you want and what the city or the area wants.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a sliding scale. I mean, I was quite fortunate in that our city role allows you the freedom to say no to those civic engagements that really are at odds with what you believe and how you feel about something. So I did say no when it was warranted, only once though in my whole term, and they were very understanding. Did I say no? Absolutely not. But it is about being true to yourself and being honest about how you represent yourself, being completely authentic, because otherwise you can't create, not effectively, not to the best of your ability. So I was always honest with people when they approached me to ask me to do things that didn't 100% sit with me. Poems where I had a question whether it was right for me to do it, like Voices. I was also approached to do a Holocaust remembrance poem, which I did do as well. The same reason as Voices. I was also approached to do. The BBC contacted me when the Queen died and said, "Have you got a poem about the Queen?" And I replied, "Have you seen my work?" So I'm not a monarchist. So my social conscience, if you will, didn't really allow for me to big up the monarchy. So it was a question of, so what do I do here? So I went back to them and I said, I have written a poem, but I don't know if you'll want to play it on air during the Queen's funeral. So I sent it back to them. It wasn't anything majorly controversial. It kind of focused on her as a bit of a role model, as a public figure growing up, because you don't see many strong women in the public eye throughout those years that I was a child and coming up in the world. So it was good to see a monarch in that sense, and in other ways not so much. So I focused on the human aspect of it, but there was a line in it that said, we weren't born in the right house and we're all human in the end. And that's a bit on the nose for the Queen's funeral. But I sent it to them and I was really honest with them. I said, I wouldn't edit it. This is the poem. You can take it or leave it. And they chose to not only play it, but they had me come down to the studio and record it. You can actually still find it on the BBC website. And they did, in fact, play it during all her funeral procession. And so, that's fine. Okay. And another poem that I was approached to do was for the King's coronation. Again, I went back and said, So I'm not a monarchist, and I was really honest about it. And the person who was asking me to do this poem was very understanding and actually said, actually, that's fine too, because we want to make sure that we represent all voices of the city and the diverse beliefs and population that is within the city. So I was okay. So I actually did a poem that was utterly about the crowd, and it was called Titans in the Sun. And there's a line in that is, there is no nation without people and no crown without the crowd. And it was basically saying it's all the people, it is not the crown. And they were okay with that and they celebrated that. So I found that by pushing back and saying, you can have this, but you have to have it as I am, that they accepted that. And where there was a potential conflict, that was, well, then you need to decide whether I'm actually the right person to ask for this specific occasion.
Yeah. That's really, really interesting. It's interesting to hear how many requests you might get and from whom, and how big an organisation, BBC, etc. These are large, monolithic, semi-statutory, statutory kind of. They're big. They're big things, and it's good to know that you felt able to stand in your own authenticity, and I would hope that the laureate that we choose both would feel able to do that in and of themselves, but also empowered by Borderlands as the kind of holding organisation that has their back. Do you guys get a lot of kind of production support from Peterborough? Are you how free are you to just like run with the ball?
Peterborough has always been really DIY, I think, as a collective of artists and creatives. It's got such a history pre the laureateship of people just running with something and finding where there are ways to do it. For the laureateship, and again, I think it's a real privilege that, and again, it's the same for you lot in Teesside, that it's run by creatives themselves who understand the purpose of it and the freedom that is needed to allow for a creative to blossom, for a creative to be an advocate, and an ambassador. So yeah, we give people can do what they want. When I was laureate, I went and got some Arts Council funding to set up Freak Speak, which was a poetry night that I ran for a few years. And that was very much me already kind of getting to know the funded arts sector and seeing support and understanding how to apply for funding. And the laureateship, again, massively gave me the confidence to do that and crack on and run with it. But I had the support of the team and Keely that was running it at the time, and the other poets if I needed it. But they, at the same time, they let me, off you go be you. And it was, yeah, I think an opportunity for me to express, similar to what Alex was saying about, like, it was a chance for me to bring all these incredible poets that I've seen, that I love, to my city, and to show them to other people, and to create a raucous night for people to come together and celebrate. That doesn't fit within that civic role necessarily, but it still, yeah, achieved that, I guess. So yeah, I think I would definitely say we're really DIY, and there's loads of freedom that came with the laureateship here.
Amazing, and loads of kind of next one help the next one help the next one help the next one,
Yes.
which is that fantastic legacy resource that the longevity of your laureateship has built up, which of course, like, we do have people within this area who are super experienced, so one would hope that whoever gets the laureateship would be able to draw on all of those, but in a way they're the starting point. So like we've got to set up that kind of culture, and in the hopes and expectations of having a similarly good run at it as you guys have had. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to go to the last question, which I'm going to pose to Lauren. So this came in from one of our poets. It says, poets create dangerously. It's part of our role as observers of history as it is lived, not as it is recorded. In times like these, do you see your role as telling it how it is? And if so, how do you put this into practice?
I think partly, yeah, it is about telling it out like it is. But I think with everything, like, don't be a twat when you are telling it like it is. You know, no one needs anything too blunt shoved in their face. You know, we're potentially not going to survive the kind of current political climate without love and empathy for each other. And we do need that. So you can tell it like it is, but with the understanding that you're not going to change the mind of your neighbor with a lack of understanding. So, you know, your reasoning for why you're telling it like it is and what that is, you know, I think there's a nuance with all of those things. And so do it with caring and understanding. I think sometimes in some of my posts, I quite like putting numbers and facts in them. And so there's that, and then I'll craft something around that. But I allow either the listener or the reader to evaluate and make their own decisions from that. Telling it like it is doesn't, yeah, it can be, that could be quite a blunt thing to be. And I think there's a nuance with that. And I think there's power within it, but the understanding that other people have different experiences and we're kind of all coming to that space. And how are we, and what's the aim of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to see Simon Armitage read this afternoon. He was on his library tour and he'd come to North Ormsby Library, which was really wonderful. And obviously, as National Laureate, he's got a lot to say about laureateships. And at the end, when we're having the Q&A, he was saying about how, as a poet, becoming a laureate means that you're seen by more and by different people. You kind of come out of this quite niche world, perhaps, that a lot of us start off in, where there are poets on the stage, there are poets in the audience, you know, we're poets together. And obviously for him, nationally, he suddenly maybe, as he said, might be further towards the front page of the newspaper, being seen by and witnessed by audiences that are very different from himself. And he said, so like you don't want to get up people's noses, but you want to get up people's noses. Like you gotta not do it and do it. And I think that's similar to the nuance that you're speaking about, where you do still have to tell it straight, but with this understanding and awareness, and one would hope empathy and compassion for the wildly different audiences who might be receiving your words at that point. So hopefully that has answered the question that came through. Guys, this has been really, really great. Last chance, I think now, just if there's any advice that any of you would like to give to somebody who is uncertain about applying, whether it be, oh, watch out for this pitfall, or oh my God, it's the best thing since sliced bread. What would you say to somebody who's watching this right now, has got all the way through to the end, and still doesn't quite know if they should put their name forward?
Just
And
do
jump
it.
in and say, go for it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
do
go
it.
for it.
Connect
If,
Even if
out,
you don't
do
get it,
it,
get
do
feedback.
it, do
Yeah,
it,
honestly.
do it.
Yeah,
if I
basically.
hadn't made that choice at 3 a.m. to just smash out the poem, smash out the application, click the button before my brain could tell me no, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't have had that experience. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be living the life I am right now. So just do it.
One of
Yeah.
the
What's the
things,
worst?
one of the things that, so we've just had the most recent laureate competition a couple of weeks ago, but at the final, lots of the competitors had applied previous years, didn't get it, so we're up again, and still talked so positively about the experiences, how it connected them to other poets, other creatives. They found their tribe, they found their group of people, they've made new friends and connections, and not just related and exclusive to poetry. People have found work off the back of meeting people from the laureateship. People have entered into different creative groups and experimented with things. So like, yeah, it for that experience alone of just finding some new mates, it is worth it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have to second that. I ended up writing poems I didn't know I had in me for people I never would have thought of collaborating with. Like, generally, it was an amazing year, and it opens up so many opportunities for what you can do. Like, obviously, lean into it, make it your own, play to your strengths. But some of the odd stuff that gets thrown your way, do it. Just fucking do it, because it's that sometimes that turns out to be the best stuff, and you're like, God, I didn't realize where that would go. So sometimes you do get asked to do the odd things or something that's a little out your comfort zone. Go for it, try it, because sometimes that's the stuff that's really,
Have you
really
got a
makes it.
specific, Alex, like an
I
odd thing that
have.
you were asked?
I got contacted by the Domestic Violence Partnership as part of their White Ribbon program in Peterborough. The White Ribbon program is basically encouraging men and boys to speak up, challenging violence against girls. I'm now an ambassador for this program off the back of this. But basically, they said, can you write a poem from the male perspective discussing violence towards women and girls? And obviously, at first, I was like, are you sure? Like, surely the victims and women want to be at the heart of this. Why are you asking me? And they said, no, we really want a masculine voice, a male voice, giving a male perspective. And I performed it at their annual meeting that was in Peterborough. And if there was ever a poem to get tonally right, it was that one. Because it was because obviously the crowd was, well, 90% female identifying, and there were survivors in that group, in that room. There were people who work with survivors and perpetrators every single day in that room, and here's me trying to give some sort of male perspective to it, and it was incredibly challenging, but it was amazing to do, and it did go down really well, and they ended up filming it and putting up. It's on YouTube, actually. I think you can find it somewhere on the Peterborough City Council YouTube, because the council shared it and they recorded it and they got me to perform it as well. I'm immensely proud of that. And at first, I was like, similar to what Kat said, sometimes you get thrown ones where you're like, are you sure that you want me to do this? And then in the end, it's like, you know what? Do it. Put your spin on it. Find a way to say something about this, and I did, and it went
Yeah,
well, and it was, yeah, so I can't stress enough, like, the stuff that you think you can't do, that is absolutely some of the best stuff, and you will get opportunities like that.
that's the stuff to do.
God willing, you'll get
Yeah,
opportunities like that, but you
amazing.
know what I mean. It's like, yeah.
Also
Yeah, I
support
do.
your laureates, yeah. Support your laureates, yeah, and go and see, like, either if you are the final, if you are the winner, but even if you're not, go and support your laureates year. Go and
Mm.
experience it, because your year will be different when you become part of that. But my gosh, their years of fun. I think I attended all of your well, at least an event on all of yours, and I think Charlie, I think I performed my first ever performance at Freak
You
Speak as
did,
well.
yeah, with the
Yeah.
confessions box. Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so that's
So
thing. But so
lovely.
enjoy the year, like, as a city as well,
Yeah.
Mm.
and support each other, because it's really fun.
It is,
Amazing.
it is
What a
really fun.
great note to end on. It's really fun. It's really fun. Everybody do it and everybody support the laureate that gets through. And yeah, here's hoping that continues far into the future. Perfectly. Perfect, Peterborough Poet Posse. Thank you so much for your insights. I'm going to wave a goodbye to the recording right now, and I hope that people who have been watching this get plenty of inspiration.